Hello and welcome to CS230. This is lecture 4 and this is lesson number 3. In this particular one now, as I mentioned the last time, we're going to be revisiting the pseudo-elements before and after once again. And I'm going to show you how you can use these to make tooltips. And these are these little pop-ups that appear when you hover over text, for example. But we can also use them to make nice inline box wrappers around the text that we saw in the Learn CSS layout website earlier. So we're, let's just have a quick look to revisit this. Let's go back to here, table of contents. And this is the kind of feature that we're interested in trying to replicate here. Okay, so that's what we're trying to build initially. So, so we're going to use an inline span element because it is an inline and it's the standard one, and that allows us to wrap some text inside a kind of a paragraph or inside any flow of text, like we've done here, without actually disrupting the flow of the paragraph. So the anchor element A is also an example of an inline element. It's one of the most common ones because you use it for links. But anyway, in that particular website we saw, so this, as you can see, Markdown renders HTML. So I've inserted some HTML into the document. Here it is. 3 spans, which is like, if we look at this piece of wrapped text here, it has the wrapped text has a box around it. It has a little piece at the front before it and a little piece after it. And so it has before and after labels, basically. So, I've told it, and I've decided, and I've manually done this. I've said the style of this background is green, the color is white, the border is one solid green pixel around, and then I'm telling it to put the word span in here, and I'm using the backslash in front of the characters so that it will display them correctly for me and not interpret them. Then I've just told it for the middle part around the wrap text here, I've said, put a 1 pixel solid green border, and I've followed up with a piece after it. So really what's happening here is that, and you can see that in this particular piece of text here, I've actually included hard coded breaks as well, and it still doesn't make any difference. If you look up here, these are all hard coded. I can put in also breaks, and it doesn't really make any difference at all, to how it's displayed. Oh, it does here. Oops. So anyway, but we want to watch this kind of thing, so you can see that can cause some problems for us. So when we have wrapped text, we want to have it properly wrapped. So we might also want a situation where we want to show the wrapper only when we hover over the text. Okay, in that situation, it becomes tricky. The wrapper and the enclosed text in the display, they're completely disconnected from each other. So there's just 3 independent span elements that appear to be connected, and you can see that they're not connected, because if we go back up here and we hit our span, they're not connected because they're not holding together. Okay, so actually what I did here is I broke it here, and it made a mess there. Okay, so that's fine. So we have to fix that and be careful of this. So that means that what happens that we would need a single hover for the middle span, and then we'd have to have some way of having the enclosing spans turn on and off when we trigger the hover as well. That becomes problematic. So really the only way to do that is to have a wrapper on the enclosed content, in this case wrapped text. Okay, and then we set up a hover, and then on the on hover it inserts and removes content. The wrapper labels, if you like, here, and that works with the only way to do that really is to have the before and after pseudo elements. Okay, so, and again, I'd recommend you look at the Mozilla documents on using the after tag. I've used a bit of that here for manipulating and looking at tooltips. Okay, so let's get there and have a look at the code. Okay, so here's one I wrote earlier. It's demo 05, so let's have a look at that in our Vivaldi browser, demo 5. And here we can see I have something with an open and a close wrapped text. And it seems fine, so we just, we can do, it moves, it's fine, it moves with the text, and it looks okay. Yeah, so I'm pleased with that. So how do we make that happen? So no different than the kind of thing we did last time. So I created, this time I'm using a span wrapper, and I'm having an open and a close, elements wrapped around the text, and that was really nice. Okay, so again, I have the same kind of effect as before as I did with the block elements, the div. And I'm taking and extracting the data open attributes content, and I'm displaying it before this and after this. And this, you can see that the padding here on the closer looks nicer than the padding here, and you can see that it's close to the wrap text. So we might want to change the padding around a little bit on the left and right in the opener as well. Okay, save this, and we've got a little bit more padding, and we might want to have some padding in the actual around the wrap text as well, so it isn't close to that. But you can figure out how to do that yourself. Okay, again, you're going to have to look at how you might do something with. Okay, what we could do is we could put the. You might say, oh well, let's put it into the wrapper. We put it here. Well, what actually happened here is it should give us something around some padding around the outside of the open and the close. So it's not particularly good, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so we get that. Okay, so that's not good. Okay, so you need to find a different way to do that, and I leave that up to you to figure it out for yourself. It's not too hard. Okay, so we did say that we wanted to look at hovers, so that would be nice. So let's now look at hovers. So let's look at demo. Oops, was that demo 5? That was demo. Okay, so here's demo 6. This demo 6. Have a look at demo 6 and see if we're anywhere close to this. Okay. Here's tooltips. Okay, here's tooltips. Okay. So really what we want to be able to do here then is that we wanted to be able to hover over the item. And did I do that in terms of the hover? Yeah, let's go back to the other one. Let's go back here. So how do I make this happen when I just hover? So how do I make this this wrap only happen when I hover over the item here? That was an interesting thing. Okay, so the way we can do that actually is to do this. Well, let's add the pseudo class. Hover. Hover. Okay, I'm adding him in here. So I've added to say that this really only needs to be applied when I hover. So we can see the wrap text is in here. Look, it's just here. And if I do this, it changes. And all we did was add the hover element, the hover class, I beg your pardon, to this particular class here. If you try to put the hover after the element, it won't work. Okay, so you can verify that for yourself. Okay, but let's have a look at how we might affect the tooltip then. Okay, so that's in number 6, and let's go to demo number 6. And so here we have something, and here's what we're going to look for. So there's a tooltip, and you'll notice this time it changes the cursor to be a nice little question mark. It inserts some content and overlays that content here again with wrap text. And it's different to what we had last time. So really, instead of adding content to the actual item itself and displaying it in line, it's actually adding and showing some content, which is a block that's overlaid on the text, and you can see here, and it goes away when we hover. So let's do this. Okay. So here we're going to look at again using a span wrapper. And you'll notice I've got the tab index in here as well. This tab index means that I can hit the tab key and it will tab to all tabbed items. It adds it to the tab. So I can actually select the tooltips by just looking at tabs, but that's what that tab is. But we don't have to have this. We have it. We have it here. We can remove this just for clarity, okay, if you want. So the class is going to be a tooltip class, and the data tooltip, again, we're passing data into the CSS via the attribute. And we're going to extract this using the attribute selector. And we saw the last time that was A2TR and brackets that did this. This time, we're actually going to use the, we're going to look at the selecting the data tooltip using the square brackets, okay? Oh, look, it talks to you about the specificity here. We talked about this in lectures, okay? Okay, so it tells us, so we have some indicator that there's a tooltip available, okay? And so, the position is relative, so we're going to highlight anything that has a data tooltip available, we're going to make it bold and blue. So that's why we say, oh, how do we know that there's a tooltip in here and there's one here? It's because we made it blue. And we could change it and make it red, like, you know. So it's grand and reload. So now this is a way of making this happen. So we've got red text here, okay, and red text here, okay. Now we're going to look at setting up a hover before and after, or sorry, just for afterwards, okay. And we're going to have after the hover starts, or after something gets focus, we look at the attribute, take the attribute from the tooltip, position it, and we style it. You know, it's got a yellow background. Let's make it green just to show. Okay. And we're telling it where to position it. Its Z-index means it sits in front of the existing content. Its color, its font size, all of these attributes that we can have are properties that we want to have of the tooltip itself. So we can save this. We can reload this content, and we got another kind of tooltip here again. So this is referencing anything that has a tooltip in a span. When we hover, and after we finish the hover, we then add this, okay? And it only exists for the hover. Okay, so it's nice. So it's two ways of playing with the before and after. In this case, we're just using the after pseudo elements in conjunction with pseudo classes like hover, and using relative positioning, absolute positioning, and it's a nice way to understand how all this kind of stuff works together. Okay, we leave it there then.